So this is level 2, March 25th. It's lesson 11, but I'm also going to cover some of the information from last week, level 10, because there were technological difficulties. But the major portion of this topic is about ascension, what is happening in your personal structure when you are ascending, and what is happening concurrently in Earth's structure as she is ascending, and why does this have to happen? Why are there beings that occupy the interstices and that exist as a type of, I keep calling it adipose tissue, or like fatty deposits? So here's the basic premise, that there are beings that are not beings of pure unconditional love. We could call them separatists, like beings who chose to separate their consciousness from unity consciousness and from source. And this is part of choices that were made as, free will, sovereign individuals, but that had an impact on the rest of the universe. Because those beings that chose to separate themselves from source, as I have spoken about in galactic history, ended up getting locked out tragically from both realms. They ended up getting locked out of unity consciousness and also not able to fully occupy the physical realm that you and I occupy with our physical cellular bodies. So when I draw the time vortex and I have, the interstices, or what I call the membrane of death. So down here, in case you're tuning in for the very first time, that layer down there, and I'm pointing to it on the screen, right down there, that is year 0. And that's where you start on your timelines, and you move upward in your journey, but your journey is a spiral journey. And eventually you will exit through the wormhole, kind of like exit through the gift shop. It's the only way to get out of this dimension. It's the only way to get out of this realm. And this realm here, this time cone, this time vortex, first of all, is analogous to this area of the sculpture. So you can see this is one life. One vortex is one life. And your chakras and your structure is made up of 4 overt vortexes, and then there's 2 implied vortexes. So there's a good connection between 4 and 6 there in the chakras too. But the point, not to be too tangential, the point that I'm trying to make is that you have, within each incarnation or corporeal existence, you have many possibilities and probabilities, and that your consciousness is being refined towards this center, which is the path of least likelihood and which is your ascension timeline. So all of these other timelines, here I'm drawing lots of lines next to it, they all end or terminate in this membrane of death. And the membrane of death is like a waterfall. It's like a sheet of energy, or a meniscus. Meniscus is the layer of surface tension that is on the top of water, and it is constantly flowing. If you look at a torus or a chakra, these are constantly flowing, constantly flowing, constantly flowing. So we understand now that the chakra of your life has a membrane on it, and that membrane is composed of all of your final moments. So when a timeline terminates in the membrane of death, I'm going to make like a big giant red lollipop on top of it there. I hope you can see that big dot. That dot is the accumulated experience of a person that's been submerged in time, and then that person is unraveled. The sheeting action of the waterfall itself begins to, it's like if you had a garment that was knitted or crocheted together out of one thread, and you start pulling that one thread, it literally unfurls everything that was woven together. And this is what is understood as the life review. Like when you say, my life flashed before my eyes. This is the aspect of ego being unmade at the point of death. And what happens is it is unfurled like a giant sweater, and it circulates back down to the beginning, which is, the starting point down here, and then has to start from the beginning and wend its way upward. And The only time that consciousness can exit this time vortex is when it is in perfect alignment with the singularity. So it should be going up like this or in like this. And then it is able to exit through this little wormhole over here, this little tiny gap that allows consciousness that has been refined to make it to the next level, where of course it then gets refined again. But what I'm talking about in this lesson are the beings that occupy this membrane of death, the interstices. So this goes back to galactic history and beings that really have never had a corporeal existence. So they do not have a mouth with which to eat physical food, and they do not have a mouth with which to eat love, which is like the food or the energy of the non-physical realm. You know, in ancient Egypt, and the ancient Egyptians were also keepers alive of the cultural traditions that were remainders of Atlantis. And one of the things the ancient Egyptians had, they had a funerary tradition, a ritual funerary tradition where after you died, special things would be done to your body and special rituals would be done over your body that would assure that your existence in the non-physical realm would be comfortable. And this is the whole idea of the Egyptian Book of Coming Forth into Day. It is not the Egyptian Book of the Dead. It is a mistranslation. The Egyptian Book of Coming Forth into Day, which is a series of incantations that were both inscribed around an Egyptian tomb and written and spoken about over the deceased person in order to guide them through their transition. And I bring this up because one of the key rituals after a mummy was created was called the opening of the mouth. And if this ritual was not performed properly, that person would end up being in the non-physical afterlife without the capacity to eat. And that's terrible because you can't actually die. You've already died. You just become an endlessly hungry being. That is how we can understand the beings that occupy the interstices. Beings that do not have their own mouth with which to eat the vibration of love. And I've spoken about before how love is like a tone. Unconditional love, it is a tone like, hey! It's a tone, and it's a tone that is created when our chakras are humming along in frictionless harmonic structure with ourselves as an individual nested perfectly within the harmonic structure of energy as it's flowing in the universe. So love does not really mean romantic partnership like, oh, like I want to hug and smooch the universe. It's not really like that. Love means that I have my chakras moving and circulating and rotating and arranged and aligned in such a way so that I'm not creating any friction with the world within which I am submerged. Thought, verbalized thought, is friction. You know, my happiest part of my day is when I am in my abstraction of my mind, when I am painting or, performing music and I have some beautiful music on, my speakers, and I'm not flapping my moving mouth parts in order to convey information and consciousness ideas to other people, or when I am in direct rapport with the sun. These are times when I am non-verbal. When I dip into being very verbose like this, I have to, because humans mostly can't understand what the sun is saying without a translator. So I am being like the translator of the sun. I get information from Sol and learn a lot, and then I translate it into vocalizations that other humans in this time and place can understand. The beings that occupy the interstices have an impact on your life. They have an impact on your chakras. This is an amazing realization that as little particles are moving in this time vortex, you're starting here and then you're moving upward, upward, upward here on the little screen down here. You're starting down here and you're moving upward, upward, upward. And as you're moving on your trajectory, there are thoughts that are shot at you, kind of like, someone over here shooting an arrow at you. If I use this little sculpture, I would say, you're trying to move forward like this, and someone from over in this direction, the membrane, is trying to push you in that direction. These are called intrusive thoughts. These are called the invaders of mind. These are the beings that literally invaded Earth at the end of Atlantis, roughly 10 or 12,000 years ago. Let's do a little bit of galactic history. Beings separated themselves as consciousness from unity consciousness. Those beings had a plan to prove that love, unconditional love, was not necessary in order to make these structures of the universe. When we talk about the structure of the universe, these are all harmonics or pattern-based structures. There's a tapestry, and there's threads that have to weave together, and they have to weave together in just the right way, or in order for something to be perceived as music, the notes have to fit together in just the right way. Otherwise, we say that's not music, that's cacophony, that's noise, that's static on the line. So and essentially what we experience here in the third dimension is an interplay of organization versus disorganization, or trying to keep our chakras in alignment and activate our crown chakra and be connected to the source and higher consciousness. And at the same time, constant verbalization is affecting our trajectory, our mental trajectory. So if each one of these, is a little timeline down here, and this is your trajectory, you're a little particle and you're going up, 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 and that's analogous to you're moving through time. And then let's say one of these negative, lower vibrational service to self entities that has installed your mind as a hacked operating system so that it can get into your mind whenever it wants to. This is one of these crucial understandings. You're running an operating system that you didn't create as humans, and the people who created it aren't human, and they created it with their own back doors so they can say whatever they want. They can say, hey, you're a piece of shit. Hey, I hate your guts. They can say whatever they want. And this is what humans experience all day long. Through your human mind, you are constantly being attacked with verbalizations that either distract or diminish. They distract your attention, diminish your energy, or here's the big one, folks, elicit negativity. So the beings that do not have a mouth with which to eat pure love in the afterlife, in the non-physical realm, they eat the denser emotions of sadness and grief and sorrow, and what I would generally blanket statement label as negativity. Anger is a big one, and all of the misery that comes from disease. Before humans were invaded, before the human genome was degraded during that invasion, humans did not have disease. Disease is an example of chakras being out of alignment. Chakras that are supposed to be in perfect divine alignment are instead askew. Pardon me. And the reason why they are askew is because there are interlopers or consciousness entities that have interposed themselves between you and the source. So your existence is supposed to be a seamless, unbroken continuum of consciousness between you and the source. You're here as an emanation of the source, and you are meant to have your life experiences and broadcast them back to the source, which is the singularity in real time. The source wants to know, is your soup hot enough? How about your chair? Is your chair comfortable? Is your back feeling comfortable? If not, the source will send out an emanation to fix things up. Heat up your soup. Get another cushion behind your back so your chair is more comfortable. And let's make it more important than that. Let's say, hey, has your consciousness been invaded by an evil alien force? The source wants to know about that. And if you tell the source, like, my mind is really suffering, I'm being attacked by evil demons all the time. I mean, this is essentially what I am describing when I describe beings that occupy these interstices. I don't use the word demons or devils because they're so emotionally loaded. It's hard to feel the unconditional love or forgiveness or understanding of what they are as entities when you use those emotionally laden terms, but that's essentially what we're talking about. Demons created the human mind, the human operating system. They created it specifically to cut off humans on Earth's surface from their innate divine connection to higher realms, and in doing so created disease, created diminished vitality. So in order for you to still have life, they couldn't take away all of your connection to source. So there's still some basic but diminished connection. So this means, like, something, when you go to sleep at night, you get more energy from the source. And when you meditate, anytime you can turn off your words, you can get more energy from the source. So I would really beg and encourage all of you to spend as much time as you can in your daily waking consciousness with non-verbalized thoughts. And first of all, what you'll start to understand is that you can do a lot without having to think. In fact, when I am really in my flow, when I'm either playing a song on the piano and singing, or drawing a really complex drawing, whatever I'm doing that is really like my very blissful activity, I am not verbalizing. I do not think, pick up the red paint, pick up the paintbrush, now dip it in the water. I don't think. And definitely, like when I'm playing the piano, there's no room for conscious thought. There's only the tactile sensation and, the anticipation of where you have to be next. So the point is that we can function at incredibly high levels without having to have conscious verbalized thought. And I will really tell you that in many ways, conscious verbalized thought degrades you. It slows down what you can do. It diminishes understanding. Like many times people have the understanding of a sudden insight, and as soon as you try to put it into words, that the significance is diminished, or the thing that made it very special seems to have lost some of that special quality because it gets lost in translation. Like I have said before, you can have a bouquet of flowers, but if you have to stick it underneath the door to get it into the room, you squash all the flowers. Something is lost in translation, all right? We're talking about the fatty deposits of the larger entity within which we exist. So, if you eat food and you are distracted while you're eating your delicious cheeseburger, you're distracted by the news or whatever, these entities that are over here are only too happy to speak to you while you're eating and say the most negative and destructive things, so that even though food might be masticated in your mouth, you're not really paying attention to it. You're paying attention to those negative thought entities that just said something bad to you. Whatever. They just judged you, or said you were a bad person, or said that you were not worthy in some way. And these are mental attacks. So the amazing realization is that you as a particle, as you are trying to go on your little particulate trajectory, from down here moving upward on that line, from down here moving upward on that line, that the peanut gallery, I call them, everybody's got a comment from the peanut gallery, all of these external entities interject, and they present their ideas, and they change your trajectory. And if they do it enough, you hit the membrane of death and you die and you circulate back around. And this has been the human condition, the human experience. The beings that occupy those interstices have been there pretty much for the past eon, like the past era. Like consciousness at the time of Atlantis was degraded. The human genome was pretty much created as we currently know it. And everything that has gone on since then has been under the auspices or under the control structure created by these beings that occupy the interstices. And they are analogous to undigested fat in your body. When you eat in a distracted manner, the essence of that food is not transmitted to the sun. The sun does not get the sensation of eating the delicious cheeseburger or cheesecake or whatever is your favorite food. The sun doesn't taste it. So that gets stored up somewhere on your body. It could be on your behind, or it could be on your stomach, or it could be on your liver, or it could be inside of the arteries of your heart. Like, you don't want these fatty buildups. The whole idea is that unconditional love is created by a tone that is created by energy as it is flowing. And when energy is stopped or diminished in its flow, it becomes degraded from the tone of unconditional love, and it devolves into things like anger or sadness or sorrow. And these are the things that the lower vibrational negative entities have farmed humanity for, since humans have a memory. In Atlantis, our emotional landscape was very different than our time after Atlantis. Our time in this realm has been very much defined by the release of negativity. So during the day, you can be empowered by choosing to no longer feed these beings. And we have declared that the restaurant is closed. The restaurant is closed. So let's talk about why these beings exist. Like, it's a benevolent, just, loving universe. Why would these beings be created? Like, why would this be structured in this way? And the answer is that there's a difference between a scavenger and a farmer. These beings were meant to be like scavengers. Bottom feeders that feed off of whatever type of flabbiness or laziness or inattentiveness people are experiencing in their life trajectory. Life is supposed to be an opportunity for learning, like a school. But what the only thing that you are learning in school right now is what it's like to get your ass kicked, okay? It's like what it's like to be bullied. Ostensibly, when you go to school, you're there to learn about reading, writing, and arithmetic, or history, or something like that, math. And what you really find out when you go to school is that it's not about what's in the books. It's about who's in your class. You learn social structure. You learn how to present yourself to an authority figure called the teacher. You learn a lot more than what's actually on the page in the books. Here, on Earth, you don't learn the way you're supposed to learn. What you're supposed to be able to do is have sovereignty of your mind, where you think only the thoughts you wish to think. And you get a chance. So that's like your paintbrush. Your mind is like your paintbrush. And you think the thoughts you want to think, and then you see what it looks like. Like when I sit down to make a painting, I mix up some paint. I'm like, I don't know, does this look like a good color? Let's see. Let's paint something, do a little test, and see what it looks like. And sometimes I stand back and I'm like, no, too orange, no, too yellow. Like, let's remix that, let's change it. This is called being an artist of your reality. It's the way you're supposed to be able to live. But this is not how humans are living on Earth, because you have a hacked operating system, or Earth surface humans, because there is Agartha. Some people call this hollow Earth. It is another realm associated with Earth, but not interactive with Earth surface human culture. And their mind and their energy frequency is very different. This is the realm of ascended masters. Shambhala, Shangri-La. So it is associated with some of the highest mountain peaks, like Mount Shasta is one near me, and there's another mountain in the Himalayas. And these are rarefied realms, high realms, where only ascended masters live. And ascended masters would be defined as beings who have graduated through the wormhole. They had corporeal existence, and they raised their vibration to the point where they no longer had to circulate back and refine their consciousness, and they could have continuity of consciousness, okay? Each one of us has the possibility to be an ascended master, and as we explore our time vortex, we will explore every single possible possibility. And there's a finite number of possibilities. We will explore them all, and the very last one we will explore is consciousness ascension. And that will happen individually and also as a team or as a united whole on this planet. Death is the aberration. Ascension is the truth. Up until the point of the fall of consciousness at the end of Atlantis, death was very different than what is currently experienced. In this time and place, death is experienced. People have accidents. Death is unintentional, is what I'm trying to say. People develop diseases. People die unintentionally. In Atlantis, before the fall of consciousness, humans did not die unintentionally. They die, first of all, the body did not undergo degradation due to aging and cellular degradation, because when you are constantly connected to source, you're constantly being renewed. You know, like your cells are more vital than the cells that are dying. And so you aren't getting older and dying, you're staying alive for a very long time. Hold on a minute while I just have a little drink. In Atlantis, the only time that people died, first of all, your body could last for as long as you wanted. Hundreds, if not 1,000 or many thousands of years. And that is because people didn't, eat physical food and stick it in their physical bodies in order to live. It was analogous to the Garden of Eden. So it was a time when pure mind and perception is how people were fed, directly from sun gazing and directly from psychic energy is where nourishment was achieved. And so of course this meant and means that you don't have karma. If you don't have to, no strawberries had to die for these, perfect beings to live. Like if you are a ascended being, you don't have to physically eat physical food. You can nourish yourself completely on pure light, or the consciousness that food is derived from. And in so doing, you don't have to interfere with anyone else's life. You don't have to end the life of a living organism. And there are some extremists in the Far East who only eat food like a ripe fruit that has fallen, like an avocado that a tree has released and dropped it on the ground. You can eat that because they say, I didn't kill anything to actually eat that. The tree just dropped it on the ground, right? But it's got a seed inside of it. And because you're eating that fruit, that seed isn't growing, so you are aborting that possible birth. You are intervening and reducing life. We have to be at peace. That when you are in the physical realm, you eat physical food and you take on the debt or the karma or the consequence of doing that. When you eat properly, like if you eat a strawberry and you saturate your taste buds with the wonderful sensations of it and you're undistracted, first of all, you are beaming that taste sensation to the sun. And the sun is getting direct feedback on your experience. Your experience is not being hijacked or stolen by these negative entities that occupy the interstices, who steal food through distraction. Like you're just about to eat your sandwich, you're like, I'm just about to bite into my delicious meal, and it's like, someone says something mean to you or turns the topic to something that is just very disgusting or that you don't want to think about. Like, these are the mind games that are being played on humanity all the time. And what that means is that you're no longer having a conversation with the sun, the origin of your food. You're now having a conversation with something that is a lesser interloper that wants to steal your food and your consciousness from you. So hold on a minute while I pause and save the recording in the background. Thank you. So I have a whole lesson that's all about food and the importance of food and the importance of eating, and many of you are returning students, so you know all about this. In this advanced lesson, we are talking about the fatty deposits of the universe or of the cosmos. Let's be impeccable with the words that I choose. So if this is the time vortex, and this is your ascension timeline, and I'll make these, orange entities, like these big blobby beings that live over here. And you're just this nice little, particle of consciousness that's down here, and you just want to go along on your trajectory. You just want to go along through life. But as you are going through time, these beings, like this is being submerged. Sorry, my pen is in the wrong place. This right here, this is being submerged in time. This being out here, this is being out of time. This is what people would call being in a higher dimension, but this is the one case where these beings are higher dimensional but lower vibration. So they don't really occupy the next level, they occupy the membrane, the transitionary zone between this level and the next level. And they've been there since human culture was incepted as we know it about 10 or 20,000 years ago, and they communicate to you during your day. They harvest your consciousness. You're trying to move through time, you're trying to go up your little timeline, and they are absolutely sending energy. I hope you can see it on your screen, like this. They're sending energy to try to push you off of your trajectory so that you will not go in the direction that you want to go. So this realm was created as a school for learning, and it has been degraded so that all you are learning here is what it's like to be bullied. You're supposed to be able to be here in school and have it be like your canvas. Like, okay, what happens when I think this? I send out this thought, and then what happens? What flows back to me? What do I experience? And then, based upon that, I can then think a different thought and send that thought out, and then see what happens and have it reflect back to me. This is supposed to be us in tune with the sun as part of a giant biofeedback loop where we are in partnership and we receive information from our partner and we send back experience, and then we receive more information and we send back experience again. And these bullies that occupy the interstices are making it so that you cannot learn. You send out a thought, but you don't have that thought reflected back to you in an unfettered way. When you send out a thought and it is distorted, like you send out a thought, it should be reflected by a clear mirror, an undistorted surface. But you're not in an undistorted world. This is a distorted world. And it's like living in a fun house where all of the mirrors are crazy and distorted. So you can be a very loving person and you can impeccably send out loving energy, and it meets a distorted filter and bounces back to you, and it tells you something untrue. It does not tell you the truth of what you sent out. It says like, you're no good, or you're not meaningful, or it gives you doubt, or it makes you feel bad, or it makes you feel negative or angry. Theoretically, the world is a mirror, and if you send out love, you should receive back love. Although certainly in this time and place, we can all think of an example both in our own lives and other people's lives where we say that such and such person is a very loving person. They don't deserve to have whatever negative, bad thing reflected back to them. So in this way, we are not really in the school of the universe. We are in the bully arena of the universe where there are, I just need to move my chair here, sorry. There are beings that are slightly older, slightly more advanced. These beings that exist here, they're maybe, a couple of million years older than you. That's not that much. That's like the difference between an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old. 4 years when you're 8 and 4, that's a big difference. But how about 4 years when you're 50 and 54? Not that much of a difference developmentally. So these beings that occupy the interstices are like the older sibling of current humanity, not the Agarthans, but current humanity. And they manipulate and abuse current humanity. And their goal is to keep you endlessly cycling around here and never getting to the wormhole and never getting out. And Agartha, this is inner earth, is the realm of people who got out. It's a totally different realm where these are not vanilla beings. So it must be understood that when you ascend, you will achieve unity consciousness, but you will not lose your individuality. The ego is afraid of death. The ego is afraid of no longer existing. And the ego is afraid of being like assimilated, morphed into the oneness. And I will lay your fears to rest because that is not what the experience is like. On the one hand, it is a sense of total self-responsibility because the only person up here is you. There's no more of these bullies sticking thoughts into your head, mind raping you, flushing your head down the toilet, making you think things you don't want to think. The only being is you. So you must take responsibility for your own emanations. At this point, in most Earth surface human lives, you cannot take responsibility for your lives because only a portion, a tiny percentage of your lives was created by you, by your own self-directed consciousness and emanations. A great deal of your lives were created by these negative service to self entities that occupy the interstices that installed you with the human operating system and made you use language and made you submerged within a culture that they created and within a religious and economic structure that they created specifically to emit negativity. That's what you need to know. You live in a realm that I would define as satanic because the social structure here is designed to make you emit lower vibrational or negative emissions, things that are less than love. Everything about the social and economic structure and banking and finance and why you have to pay rent and why you have to shop at a grocery store. Why do you not merely hunt and gather and live in perfect attunement with the planet upon which you were born and that your body is a part of? Why is there the artificial separation of ego, humanity from the natural world, of ego or self from connection? So the process of ascension is a process of reconnecting both to the planet, like the planet as an entity. You become friends with her again. She's an actual person, just like the cells of my body can be friends with me as the overarching person who drives this body and makes it go around and do things. We can be friends with Earth, and Earth has been very unhappy and has suffered a lot due to this unnatural state. Forgive me if I return again to something that I began saying before, but death is the aberration. We were not designed to die. We were designed to consciously, intentionally ascend. And this means having continuity of consciousness. So it's like having a lucid dream. Lucid dreamers are up here in daily waking consciousness. They descend into the sleep state and they're aware that they're in the sleep state. They're like, I'm having a dream and I know I'm having a dream. Then they re-emerge from the sleep state and they remember everything that happened. This is analogous to continuity of consciousness between lifetimes, and I know that I've spoken about in previous recordings Tibetan Buddhists and how they have developed techniques for consciousness cultivation during your life so that you can have coherence. Coherence means waves that stick together. Here's a picture of coherent waves. All of the ups and all of the downs all fit together. When you are, there you go, sorry, my head was in the way. When you are coherent in your light body stays together even if you are submerged within an ocean of light. within an ocean of consciousness. So this is why we are cultivating ourselves in order to become ascended masters. We have to master our mind so that the only person up here is us, so that it's just you as an individual, and you maintain your individuality and the coherence of your field even when you are submerged within an ocean of consciousness amidst many other individuals who are also they're vibrating at their own rate. So the ascended masters each have a sense of individuality. They're not bland, vanilla unity consciousness, or the sense of like some kind of like the Borg, like resistance is futile, join the Borg, you cannot get away. That's not what it's like. And this has to do with the planet ascending and pretty much clearing out the interstices, clearing out these areas here. So when people go on a pilgrimage, you do a lot of cardiovascular exercise, and the fatty deposits that are stored in your body come out of storage. And even if you are not a very fat, obese, hundreds of pounds overweight person, each one of us has fat or stored emotional experiences that are in deep storage. And when you do any kind of intense cardiovascular exercise, eventually you get to those deep stores. And that brings those emotional residues to the forefront so that they can be processed. That is what needs to happen with the beings that occupy the interstices. These are the stored emotional experiences of the larger entity of the cosmos. And for the overarching meta entity to rise higher, those stored deposits need to be taken out of storage and resolved. So it means, why are these negative beings here? How did they get to be there? How do we get rid of them? What do we do? And the answer is love is the universal solvent, and cancellation waves. So in understanding waves, I'm going to do math for you. Waves have an up and a down, right? Like if this is, I just drew a wave back there, and you have the up part and the down part, right? Hold on a sec. To drink a little water. I'm just collecting my thoughts and figuring out, as I'm doing this, I'm organizing how I want to say this and present this to you. Okay, Mike has a question, so it's a good opportunity actually for me to have a brief pause there. Question says, can I help clear the interstices during the dream time? So I know what you're talking about. There are some people, and I think I've heard it on some of the guided phone chats of these different consciousness groups, that enter into the bardo. So this is what is known as the bardo. This level here, the interstices, the limbo, the world between worlds. And yes, this is a world that you can dip your toes into in the dreaming time. And then eventually when you die, you go into that world. So here's my personal take on this, that you don't want to get too stuck on being like the knight in shining armor, or like the Don Quixote of going into the bardo and fixing everything and fighting everyone. Because that whole idea of adversarial conflict is antithetical to cancellation waves and using love as a solvent. The idea really is that beings that are in these interstices, they need to go back for reprocessing. They need to go back to the great galactic central sun and remember who they are and remember who they're not. And they have spent so many eons occupying these positions that they don't remember or have a clear delineation. They're like Gollum. They're like from Lord of the Rings. They're twisted versions of what they once were. And they're so far from what they once were, they don't even remember what their original intention was. So the best thing that you can do for them is not to fight against them. Fighting against these beings feeds them. not to shame them, not to tell them, you're bad and wrong and evil and I disagree with who and what you are. That is not the way to deal with them. Cancellation waves means that you give something its equal and opposite in order to bring it to the point of neutrality. If you've ever had one of those noise canceling headphones, I don't have them, they're very expensive, but some people that go on airplanes, it's made by Bose, and you can get these headphones that cancel out the noise of the place where you are. And the way that it works is, if you have a wave like this, now I'm choosing a totally different color, the cancellation wave for that would be something that is the equal and opposite, because this plus this collapses down into this. It collapses down into nothingness. So this whole little setup here would essentially be negated. So let's say this plus this equals a straight line. You couldn't see that with my head in the way. This plus this equals a straight line. And this is how we resolve these beings. They are unmade. And the unmaking process is not like shooting or killing or hacking with the machete. None of this is violent. And this is very hard because the beings that occupy the interstices, they're demons. They're evil. They've been hurting you and everyone on earth their whole lives. This is who and what they are. And when we're in meditation and when you see them attacking you, or when you sense them attacking you, it's very challenging not to go to, the warrior stance, not to go to, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to do this and that to you, because that's the victim comes out. Like, you've been abused, you've been victimized, and then you want to rise up again and say, stop hurting me, this will never happen again. But what you really need to do is produce cancellation waves, which neutralizes them and send them back to the great galactic central sun, which is energy flows. We put energy into the tube and the energy flows. These are blockages, like arterial blockages in the flow of consciousness. That is the circulatory system of our cosmos. And these energies have been blocked there for thousands and thousands of years. And their decision to stay blocked and not to move and not to grow and change and circulate has had an impact on the entire cosmos. It definitely had an impact on Earth. Poor Earth. We're all here to help Earth. Do you know that? Like, she needs help. We are here to help her. I am definitely here to help her, like, as a sister. Like, my triumphs are her triumphs, and her suffering and challenges are my own suffering and challenges. And when you look at the world in that way, like, think about Fukushima. Fukushima is like a suppurating wound on the surface of Earth. It's like a major health crisis that isn't getting any better, and she's really ill and suffering, and that is hurting you and me and all of the other plants and animals that make up the biosphere. And Earth needs to speak through the human neurological consciousness in order to rectify that situation, because elephants and blue whales and dolphins do not have the physical infrastructure to fix Fukushima. They don't have bulldozers and cranes and things like that. They don't work in that way. So Earth has to work through humans that have the neurological and biological propensity to build these things and make problems and then fix them. So planetary ascension. And I'm just going to do 5 more minutes and then open the floor to any comments or questions. But we are ascending individually and we are ascending as the planet. When Atlantis fell, before it fell, a certain proportion of that civilization sequestered itself. And this is what we know as inner Earth or hollow Earth or Agartha or Shangri-La or Shambhala, a world of mental masters. And they live behind a shield that this stuff does not penetrate. They have a shield, like we can all make our beautiful merkabahs and make shields around ourselves. Their entire culture is shielded. And that's why I've said before, you can't get into their realm with like a shovel or a bulldozer or, just digging into the earth. You can't get in there. You need to have a vibratory key. You need to be vibrating at the right rate to get in there. You need to be able to go through a wormhole, like this wormhole up here, in order to get into Agartha or Hollow Earth, the next highest realm of masters. So those beings have existed sequestered in a little bubble, and they've been holding that vibration while there has been all of this degradation on Earth's surface human culture, right? Now we are going to be combining Earth's surface human culture and the inner Earth remnant culture. The outside and the inside are going to be combined. This is part of planetary ascension. So we are understanding that as the occupants of Earth's surface begin to kick out these bullies. I also have to tell you this so strongly. Bullies don't go away if you ignore them. If you ever had a problem in school and you went home to your mom or dad and you said, a bully beat me up, and they said, just ignore them, honey, they'll go away. That's terrible advice. Don't listen, all right? And I would never give that advice to my child or anyone that I cared about. Bullies are looking for a boundary. They're waiting for you or someone or anyone to say, stop. You go no further. This stops now. This stops here. You can't do this anymore. And there is a loving way to do that, because when you love, you accept people for what they are. A rattlesnake is a rattlesnake. It's not a bunny rabbit, okay? Evil beings, evil demonic beings that occupy, this is hell, okay? This membrane is the realm of hell. They are hellish beings. They are what they are. They're not gonna be any different. They're going to try to kill and abuse you and do whatever they can in order to elicit negativity. So when you accept something for what it is, you don't try to make it any different than what it is. You say, I accept you. You are what you are. And then I protect myself from you. Like, if you're a rattlesnake, I'm not going to touch you. If you're a bunny, you might be a vicious bunny. Maybe I shouldn't touch you. I'm just joking. But the point is, we recognize and accept who and what these beings are. They are twisted, diminished beings that are far from love. And the most merciful thing you can do is unmake them. Do not feed them with more anger or negativity. Do not allow them to feed off of you or diminish your contact to the sun. And you send them back to the great galactic central sun for reprocessing. And okay, you can ask me, Aurora, how does one do that? It is done energetically. It's in conversation. When someone speaks to you and they say, hi, essentially like, hi, I'm an evil negative entity and I'm here to feed off of your consciousness today. You say, no, thank you. I'm not interested in you feeding off of my consciousness. And then you say to it, I know who and what you are. You once were a portion of God. You once were together in unity consciousness with the source. And you have now become a twisted, distorted version of yourself. And the best thing that you can do is take a sun bath. And the sun washes away all of the parts of you that aren't real and leaves behind only the valuable crystalline core of who you really are. And that is what is going on right now with us individually and with us as a planet. The restaurant is closed. The lower vibrational service to self negative thought entities that I would describe as satanic, in that they want to create a release of negativity, they are not in charge anymore. And each one of us is no longer going to be emitting negativity. You will no longer be food for these beings. Earth will no longer be a farm for these beings. These beings were meant to be scavengers, not farmers. Scavengers are supposed to eat only the flab or only what is sticking out over the edges. these beings are not supposed to harm your consciousness during its trajectory during the day. You're supposed to be able to think for yourself. And if you make negative thoughts or make a negative emanation, they're happy to eat that emanation, and that's how you learn. But if you're constantly being farmed for negativity because you're constantly being punched in the head with these thoughts, then you don't get to learn, and that's out of balance. So everything in our cosmos is being pulled back into balance now. These beings are going to no longer occupy the interstices, have to face the consequences or the accumulated karma of their actions, and each one of us will finally be able to go to school in a non-bullying environment. We are finally going to learn what it feels like. Hey, how do I paint with the paintbrush of my mind? How do I make the events that I wish to happen happen? You know, many people are using their minds and they're inadvertently creating things like diseases or car accidents or food poisoning or whatever. No one wants to have those experiences. They are created because you're not 100% in control of your mind. So now, as you gain control of your mind, that's called becoming a master, all right? Each one of us should be masters of our mind. No one else should be thinking with your mind or making you think thoughts that you don't wish to think. And each one of us has the possibility to ascend or align yourself with this core central timeline and abrogate the necessity of death. Death is the aberration. Death is not what was meant to be. It just means that for the past 12,000 years, death has been a very real experience here. But eternal life is the truth. Eternal continuity of consciousness, just like the meditating monks of the Far East are able to consciously slow down their breath, intentionally stop their heart, and choose to leave their body. That is an ascended death. There's also the option of kindling your biological structure into a higher vibrational state. When I say kindling, I mean almost like spontaneous human combustion, but in a non-destructive way. An immediate state change, a transition or transformation from light that is moving at slower than the speed of light to light that is moving at the speed of light. And that's having a light body. So that concludes everything for today. I'm so happy that that the recordings all worked out okay and that I didn't get kicked off of the chat and everything like that. And just a second here, I'm going to finish this and then open the floor to any questions. There we go. The thing is recording, and I'm also going to end the screen record.